Hey, I'm Jeff, and I make music with my brother.
Hi, I'm Jonathan, and I also make music with my brother.
Together, we are Ekko and Sidetrack, and we make music that sounds like this.
And this.
And even this. This podcast is about music, creativity, and everything in between.
Welcome to A Band Apart with Ekko and Sidetrack. Today's podcast is brought to you by our friends at Short Order Burger. When I want a burger, I want it quickly. I don't want to be the guy standing in line getting hangry with a bunch of other hangry people. So I'm going to download the new Short Order ordering app and use it to order and skip the line when I pick up my order today. It's straightforward to use, and by becoming a member, you can actually earn points for every purchase. For every $1 you spend, you'll earn 10 points, which can be used for special offers or in-app credit. And if you're getting weekly burgers, my friends, that could be quite a lucrative amount of points. Go download it in the App Store today and take advantage of it. And as always, don't forget to say the code word Ekko and Sidetrack at checkout in store for 10% off your order. Big up. Jeff, after 4 weeks off the podcast,
I think it's been longer than 4 weeks.
let's say 5,
Maybe even longer.
we're back.
Yeah, and just to address our absence, after staying at should we call him Tim?
Tim Dalton.
Timothy
Or
Dalton.
really, we should call him a bloody thief.
Yeah. So, long story short, we were staying at Timothy Dalton's place, which was great. We were only there for 5 days.
Yeah.
And we left, then he left. And accidentally, we put our podcast gear in a little area that he was packing a bunch of photography gear. He's an avid photographer. And he went to...
Morocco.
And other parts of Africa, really.
He's basically gone for 6 months. And we said, Tim, look, there's been a mistake. You've accidentally packed some of our gear. Can you send it back? Left us on scene.
And he was bloody long about it, wasn't he?
Well, he hasn't got back to us still. So basically, Timothy Dalton is probably recording his own podcast with our gear. And if you're a fan of the Dalton Hour, maybe just hit him up on socials, message him, say, give Ekko and Sidetrack their gear back. You know, he's got enough money and enough connections that he can buy his own recorder.
Where's the Bond residuals, Tim?
Exactly.
We drank great wine at your house. We had great food, and you've
stolen off immigrants.
Well, we're not immigrants. We don't live here. We're just...
You've stolen off tourists.
Yeah, he's stolen off tourists, which actually brings me to a little story that I have,
Jeff,
that I told you the other day, and I want to say it on the podcast because it happened to a friend of mine. A young tourist came here from Australia, never been to London, and she got her phone stolen.
In a club,
In a nightclub, yeah. Her and a friend got their phone stolen, brand new iPhone 13, which, as she's told me, was the first phone she'd bought for its camera. You know, you're going traveling, you want to take great photos.
Definitely.
And then so she goes to the Apple store in Covent Garden, spends the equivalent of probably like $1,500 Australian dollars on a new iPhone 12 because that's what they had in stock.
Yep.
And then less than 24 hours later, she's walking along the street and it gets snatched out of her hand.
Double steal.
The double steal. So she's unfortunately lost 2 phones, and I just think that is crazy. And she chased him, apparently. She got in a car and said, follow that guy, like in the movies.
Just a random car.
Well, I think it was maybe a taxi or something else. And she asked a guy to borrow his bike, and the guy would not relinquish his wheels.
I mean, that's understandable. Unless it was like a Boris biker. That's a bit of a dick move. But that's fucked. Like, I've never... You know, even after living here, I never saw any thievery. And I think I'm quite lucky to have never seen any thievery and really only ever had that run-in where the guy tried to rob me, but I said no.
What happened then?
I was on my way to work and he must have been like 16, 17 in New Cross, just pulled over on his bike and he was like, oi, and started talking to me. And I was like, what? And stopped. And he was like, take off your fucking headphones when I'm talking to you. And I took him out. I'm like, what? And he's like, give me your fucking bag.
It's not going to work.
No.
Hello, dog.
And I said, no. And he said, give me your fucking bag. I said, no. And he's half on his bike. And my heart starts racing a little bit. But I know that if he tries to get me or reach over, I'm just going to kick the fuck out of the bike and he can fall over.
Yeah.
And he's like, give me your fucking bag. Give me everything. And I'm like, no, man. Fuck you. And he goes, what's your name? And I said, fuck you. I'm not telling you. And he's like, where do you live? And I go, fuck off. And
He went from going to steal your stuff to stealing your identity.
And I'm like, and then I think he goes, fucking tell me where you live. And I just said, New Cross. And he's like,
shout out to the New Cross Massive.
and he stops and he's like, all right, you can go. Thought you were someone else, or like thought I was fucking. I think he was looking for someone. He might. I think that he was told to look for some
Long-haired, mustachioed guy.
long-haired white dude that possibly owed people money or something. I can't remember if he said like, I'm looking for someone else, or if he said like, oh, you're not Dave, or you're not a name or something.
That's also a good cover-up for just a bungled, shitty robbery.
Absolutely. It did seem like a pretty shitty robbery, but he was pretty young. It must have been like 16, 17. I just remember he was like half leaning on the bike.
And you had a plan.
Bang.
I'm going to kick the shit
This
out of it.
is New Cross.
But
But yeah, pretty crazy that it's like a...
yeah,
I've never... London, my London that I have experienced is pretty safe.
mylondon.com/Jonathan.
/safety. But it's not. Like, I know people that have... Lots of stuff has happened. But
Yeah, and now we're sitting in a park doing a podcast on a bench and
in
Haggerston. And we're kind of like now starting to look around ourselves. And the similar thing happened the other day. I was in London Fields working on my laptop, trying to be Fred again. The tune's called In the Park. No good. But just giving it a crack, just working because you can on a laptop.
Yes.
And it was fun. It was a nice experience in the sun. And then I got told that story by Holly.
Hey, Holly.
Hey, Cinnamon. And then all of a sudden I took off my noise cancelling headphones and just started kind of looking around like I'm a prime suspect. Like I've just laid out like $2,500 worth of equipment. Like, look at me. Got my headphones. I got my MacBook. My phone's just here. I got a bag.
You had everything out.
Just everything out. Someone could have
That's
just
fucked.
walked up and just yeah. So it just made me conscious. But touch wood, because we are sitting on a wooden bench, that nothing like that happens to us. And we have been, yes, incredibly lucky. I've only been mugged once, and I think I've told that story on the podcast. So I shan't tell it again. Jono, what have you been up to for the last 6 weeks? Well, bloody Tim's taking advantage. Also, I should just say, big shout out to the team at London City Hi-Fi for supplying us this gear.
Yeah.
If you're in either their Oxford Street store or the Lewisham spot,
Yeah.
head down, use code Ekko and Sidetrack, and you'll get 10% off. Ask for Gary, Dan, or Neville.
Yeah. Big up, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks. So
This is brought to you by
London
City
City
Hi-Fi.
Hi-Fi. Bringing hi-fi to the London people.
What have I been up to? Jeff, we've played 4 shows. We've been to the Quicity.
Yes.
We've been to Hungary. Played
Yes.
our Budapest debut.
Shout out to the Budapest crew.
We've played London at the 1991 Odyssey album launch.
Yes.
We've also... That's it.
Have we been to Rampage?
I think we've been to Rampage. I think we talked about Rampage. If we haven't, we went to Rampage as well. And it's been quite cool,
Cool.
cool
It's been pretty cool.
to be in and out of places and run into people. And been pretty this has kind of been show-wise the summer that we missed out on in 2020, which I'm really happy with. I think I talked about that on a previous podcast, but we've had surprise guests. We've seen people we wanted to see at random times. We've run into people. We've played great shows.
We've met some great
We've
fans.
We've met amazing fans.
We've played new music to people.
And
And-
tested album bits out.
Yeah, and old music to new people, which is really cool.
Yeah.
to travel somewhere. Liquidity was a great one because like we built on our crowd from last time, and that's a really positive experience. We did do a podcast with the Polygon Boys, and hopefully that audio will be up sometime, maybe next week. Maybe
that might be the next podcast.
Maybe,
which was quite cool because we arrived. Like Jeff and I arrived in Amsterdam a few days earlier and actually worked in a studio there. Again, the Polygon guys' studio. Thank you so much, Elliot and Julian. And then we kind of left to go to the festival on Friday afternoon, met up with Shock One, arrived, and instantly saw people we knew, got a beer, and basically just went and recorded a podcast straight away.
And then 45 minutes later, we're on stage.
Played a set. And then, did we go to a meet and greet as well that day?
Yeah. It all happened. It was just like...
It all happened so fucking quickly.
But it was an absolute vibe because Liquidity is... I'll speak for myself. It's my favourite drum and bass festival.
No, you can speak for me there, buddy, too, because it's my favourite drum and bass festival.
Yeah.
In fact, I said that before, Jeff, if anyone...
Copyright Jonathan Hansen.
And that was great as well because we saw fucking Woody, Laura. I mean, we saw everyone. We spent like a weekend just running into people and laughing and having fun with friends. Josh, Frankie, Sin, Graham from Lee Matthews, Carl.
The
Nick,
list goes
Seb.
on.
I mean, I'm not going to just list everyone, but it was fucking great. It was really special. And I think that was one, again, that's like a hallmark event in the year for us.
Yeah, it's a come together of some amazing people.
Yeah, and it's a come home. It feels like you're coming home. And I think we said that. I think we did interviews with the Liquidity TV people, and I think we both said like it feels like coming home.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was that interview backstage. Man, I think by then we were pretty drunk because we'd eaten nothing and we just kept like grabbing a beer. Like, oh, before the next thing we'll grab a beer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an absolute vibe. Something that struck me was how fucking friendly everyone is, and we know, because we, know a bunch of people. And I believe we know a bunch of good people, and there is predominantly great people in drum and bass and the music scene. But when you're introducing someone new, you get that new experience of seeing someone you love being treated really well.
Yeah.
And you go, it's just confirmation that, the people I work with are cool people.
Yeah.
And that was introducing Holly to a bunch of people and Holly introducing herself to a bunch of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just got that confirmation that was like, whoa, it is a special thing that we're part of.
Absolutely. I think like the drum and bass community is a pretty golden place. Like especially the Dutch contingent or the Liquidity family and extended, like everyone that works there plus the...
Shout out to Steffi.
Everyone that works there, but also like all the fans of Liquidity. But I would even say in general, everyone we've run into shows, whether it be in Budapest or in London or at Rampage, everyone in drum and bass
or in Bournemouth
is just so fucking cool, and so nice and so welcoming and so like excitable, and that doesn't, at least from our perspective, we don't really see much negativity, I guess. Like sometimes it's there, but it's all very like on the outer edge, or we just don't pay much attention to it. We've always as well have like been friends with everyone basically in the scene. So there's no like, oh, he makes jump up, he must be a fucking idiot, or
he makes dance floor, he must be a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we have never had a full-on allegiance to any sort of crew or anything. We are friends to all, enemy of none.
I think I've got some enemies.
Should we dive into that, or
No, we don't need to dive into it.
But let's not bring up Tim again. Jesus Christ. Go to Morocco. I think you're a goddamn professional photographer.
Fuck you, Tim Dalton.
Hey.
So
someone else is playing Frisbee, Jonathan.
That's an aerobie.
An aerobie.
A child with an aerobie. Could there be a more fun thing? Jeff, we're actually on 0 battery right now, so I might just stop and run over to Tesco's to get some battery.
Okay.
And we're back. Jeff, it's funny, after I said that and stopped recording, the battery for the H6 literally died. And I came back and said, I think I have precognitive abilities.
Not unlike someone from Minority Report.
I think that's exactly correct.
Um,
He's gone precog.
well, I'll be asking you for some predictions at the end of the podcast.
I've got some big ones.
All right. We were talking briefly about the Frisbee because there was a child over there throwing one.
Yes. Technically it was an aerobie, but yes.
And that's a Frisbee with a hole in it. But, yeah, we've been playing a little bit of Frisbee. We played Frisbee in Vondel Park.
We did.
Have you ever thrown a Frisbee? Or is this like your first... You've thrown one, but like is this...
I've thrown one. The most I've thrown one before this was when... I can't remember, like over 5 years ago, Jeff was playing competitive Frisbee in a park with some of his friends that he knew, and I came down and played a few games.
Oh, yeah.
And that's basically that's the most I've thrown a Frisbee.
Yeah. With Jeremy and Mitch and
yeah,
a bunch of the guys from Pond and Tame Impala and stuff.
Yeah. So since then, no. In fact, the first throws at Vondel Park, I was like, the first throws in Richmond Park when we were there with Ben and Holly.
Yeah.
Were like, this is fucked. But then I kind of got it. I feel like I got it in Vondel.
Yeah, and Holly really got it in Vondel.
Holly got it in Vondel as well.
She's got a great clamp of a catch as well.
Yeah, her nickname's now Clamps. So on the podcast, instead of saying, hey, Holly, maybe I'm going to say, hey, Clamps.
Hey, Clamps. Clamps.
Clamp him. For any of you Futurama fans, that's a deep cut. Shout out to Gran Calavera.
Yeah, shout out.
So, we're talking about having fun at the Quicity and the drum and bass scene and enjoying the holiday in general. And now as we're recording this podcast, obviously in the park, there's a woman with a baby throwing a blue ball for a dog, which is quite beautiful.
It's a lovely dappled light in this area. I'd love a bit more sunshine on us, but we'll get some more later when we...
London does great dappled light.
It does. Yeah, the light here is different. I think that because the sun hangs in the sky longer in certain spots, it has a certain light that we just don't get in Australia.
It's softer.
Yeah. It's
a lot softer than Australia. And I think that's what adds to its beauty.
Yeah.
We've also, apart from playing some shows, we've also had some studio time. And we've been pretty lucky with that too. We've been in the studio working on stuff with Dimension. We've been working on some stuff with graphics. Went down to Devon and spent a couple of days down there. Did a live stream with him and Fred V. Dropped in and surprised Fred V.
Saw Fred's parents again?
The last time we saw Fred's parents, we actually went out for breakfast with them before Hospitality in the Park in 2019.
It was a very, very... it was for Fred's birthday, wasn't it?
I think it was for Fred's birthday.
Yeah.
And then we went to Hospitality. It's quite funny, like we've met quite a few drum and bass people's parents, and quite a few drum and bass people have met our parents.
Yeah.
Like, you reminded me that Josh from Hybrid Mind stayed with us at our parents' house for a couple of days, and he signed our mum's guest book.
Yeah, he signed the Hanson family guest book.
Which I find so funny.
Because he brought it up at the train station the other day. He asked Holly if she'd ever signed it, and obviously Holly doesn't sign it because Holly lives in Perth and she's not really a visitor of the Hanson house in that kind of official way. But it was quite funny. Holly's like, I can imagine your mum has a guest book. And then Josh was like, no, she does, and I have signed it.
You go find it.
It's lovely to see the origin stories of our friends and to meet the people that raised them.
Yeah.
And to get like some perspective. And I think it adds to the richness of the
friendships.
The friendship and the experience. It's
I
really
think
cool.
so. I love meeting people's parents and speaking to them and getting an insight onto like, oh, cool, I can see how you were crafted, or
just see how you interact.
See how you interact and why you interact with people, and in these ways. It's beautiful, I think.
I think me and you both like that kind of depth of knowing someone.
Yeah.
And we value like having meandering conversation with someone we just met and learning and a few things and asking a few questions. And yeah, it's nice. It's, we both like to conversate. That's why we do have a podcast like this. And it was lovely to, meet a variety of people's parents. Jonathan, how do you feel about London?
I have ebbed and flowed with this a little bit.
Go on.
Because there's days that I really love London and there's other days that I don't. I'm in a privileged position where I'm currently staying with my partner and it's like I live here. I'm not living out of a suitcase. I've got clothing rack and I've got kind of responsibilities to a certain extent, and it's like I'm playing house. And I could definitely get used to that. And it's probably a better standard of living than I was experiencing before I left, because I obviously wasn't also working kind of full time. I'm not working kind of full time now. And I think if I could do what I've done in the last week,
which is
have a day in the studio and do sessions with people, have a admin day, have a day in the studio today. If we were doing like 9 to 5 business and then, this weekend's Let It Roll and everyone's going to Let It Roll. We're not. I'm going to go meet James's family. Jeff's going to hang out in London. But if we were then going to Let It Roll, I could do that. If I could maintain when we're working on music, we're doing sessions, we've got access to a studio, that stuff, I could live here.
Yeah.
I think I would not want to have a lower standard of living than I have now. Like, something I've talked to people about is like, if I wanted to come back, and I have wanted to come back because I've felt like my life is kind of not necessarily on pause, but I haven't wanted to settle in Perth. I haven't been able to settle in Perth because I've wanted to come back to London.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have said to me, don't come back. And if I've said this before, I probably have said it before on the podcast, so forgive me. Don't come back and struggle again. Like, don't come back and be trying to fit in hours or be trying to push. Like, come back at a certain point that you can maintain. Music doesn't have to be my sole source of income, but it has to be the main priority rather than fitting music around a full-time job or something like that. And I definitely, London is a place that if you struggle, or if there's a little bit of struggle, it's magnified. And I definitely would not want to come back and struggle financially to that degree. I think London's a hard place to be in that position.
It can be a hard place to get up.
Yeah. But I still love it. It still feels like homely to me. And I think that, I don't know, I find comfort in stuff like the tube or buses and...
Packet of McVitie's being cracked.
Or some Watsits, which is a new find for me.
I got a packet of crunchy Watsits. I don't know what they involve, but I got a pack of them to get into when I get home.
So I like it here.
Okay. I think London has ebbed and flowed for me as well. Like, it's thanks for asking. It's like
sorry.
It can be a welcoming place, but it can also be a place where you could see, you can see the divide, and the cost of living has definitely gone up. I agree with you. Like, I could do this rhythm, and it would be a lovely thing, and there's a lot more opportunities here. But the city itself probably isn't as welcoming and warm as I might need it. I think I've changed a little bit as I've gotten a little bit older. But yeah, it's still a great place, and I'm now so comfortable. Like every single time you come back, you get more comfortable with the transport and more comfortable moving around the place and everything. But because I've stayed at a few different places along this trip, now I'm just like, yeah, I feel like I can kind of rattle off where I need to go without looking at the map and know what you're doing. You just get comfortable, you put on your headphones, listen to a podcast. I've started to love the commute again. It's like, you know, when you drive to work at home, you get to listen to podcasts and some music. Now you just do it on the tube. Or the Overground, or the DLR, the National Rail, the Thameslink, or like whatever you do.
I think it's like, it really, I find with London, because the cost of living is so high, it is always about the finance of living here.
Mm.
And that's always like, are you earning enough money to live comfortably here?
To have the life that you want
to
live.
have the life you want to live. And then, you know, if you are, you then have to think about, especially if you're from another country, like we're from Australia, if we have enough money to live the life we live in London, then what does that allow in Perth? And then you go, oh, well, actually I could get quite a lot. Perhaps, but you know, obviously you're not earning pounds, and you have to compare everything.
It's a complex equation.
It is a very complex equation, but I think I still like the fact that you feel part of the music industry here.
Yeah, because in Perth particularly, you can feel a bit
disconnected.
Yeah,
you know, we ran. It's lovely to work out of a cafe yesterday and running into Luke and Seb.
Yeah.
And we would run into, and that's what I loved about living here. You would go for beers with people, have conversations, and you felt like you were working in a community.
And be inspired
and be like, oh, yeah, I want to work in the studio. Whereas at home, we only interact with Carl.
Yeah, you can
and maybe occasionally Justin.
Yeah, in a bit of a vacuum, and it feels a little bit slow.
I think that might be conducive to how some people work, but I think for us, we need the community, and then to be put in, and then to be alone. If that makes sense. Like
the pool you go swimming on and get out and do some work, and then swimming in the pool. But when you're further from the pool, it's a lot harder to go swimming.
Yeah. Do you think you could live here?
I could. I don't particularly want to.
Yeah.
I definitely could. But again, I agree with you about the standard of living thing. You'd have to be at a certain level. I think I'm much more drawn to a place like Amsterdam as a creative place. I do want to come back here. I'm planning to come back here in winter and see what it's like in winter, because I've never been in Europe in winter. And so I've got this romantic vision of the Northern Hemisphere, because I'm always here during summer and people are like, let's get a cider, I'll get off work early. Yeah, it's like, whereas in winter I imagine it's a completely different place. Well, I don't imagine, I can see and hear that it is a different place. So to see it in sometime in January, I'm excited to maybe get some perspective, especially coming from Perth, where I'll be like, you know, going swimming, and then all of a sudden I'll be here and I go, I should have brought more layers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad place in winter.
As our friend Nisha said the other day, you endure winter for summer.
Yeah.
And that's the magic of it.
Yeah, and that's why summer is so fun, and people are more excited and more up for getting beers in the park or partying or being social, because winter's tough. The sun going down at 4 is fucking crap.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're going to work in darkness, you come home and work in darkness. And it just makes things harder to do. And the kind of social things you do is like, let's collectively curl in a pub. Curl up. Like you gather in pubs and drink like red wine.
Thought I was going to learn a new slang.
Get battered on red wine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, like the last winter I had, and really the only winter I had, because in 2019 I came home for a month So I left mid-December, came back mid-January. I guess January was still cold, but it was that. I think the toughest part is the holiday period.
Mm.
But when I was here for it, it was lockdown, so you couldn't even go to pubs, and that's what made it more depressing. And I was still working, and it was like, this does fucking suck.
I was chatting to our friend Becca last night about London being such a hub of activity. There's so many things to do that when all of a sudden those things are stopped, or you're not allowed to do them, or you do get isolated in your little flat, you realise that you might not be as happy in your tiny space that you've been allocated and pay rent for as you thought you are, because like you do spend so much time out of your house, whereas in Australia we tend to like, you know, spend a fair bit of time at home because it's larger and we can be more free with it. But here, when that space becomes your whole world, it can be quite depressing, and it can be really hard.
I think it's a city of extremes. You know, when it's good, it can be fucking magical. But when it's bad, it can be really, really isolating.
A hell cauldron.
Yeah. Even just like a bad day can be, because you're interacting with so many people and so many things, you know, on your hour journey to and from work, you could have a phone stolen, you could fall in a puddle, someone could be rude to you, all this stuff. Or at the same time, you can also meet the love of your life, or see a friend on the street. Get a hand job on the street. Like it's all possible. There's just more people, more opportunities, more opportunity for things to happen in your life. Than there are in Perth. And I think I want to have a life where lots of stuff happens to me at this stage.
And for you.
And for me. I'd love to get a hand job on the street.
I think that man over there is motioning at us.
We are in the dogging...
10 minutes. Probably, maybe less. It's fine.
Is that Neville? Is that Neville from Hi-Fi?
London City Hi-Fi.
Get back to work, Neville.
What the hell are you doing this far north as well?
He's got his headphones on. He must be... He's listening to...
the podcast.
Getting warmed up. Would you take a hand job off a stranger in a bus stop?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
No, neither would I. I like my hand jobs private.
On that note, should we wrap this one up?
And by wrap this one, I mean my penis.
A small...
Sorry.
Into the gutter. A small piece of sunshine has come out, and I think we should go enjoy it and then walk down and get some music done.
Okay.
Jonathan, it's great to be back.
It is great to be back. And folks, now with our gear back in our
possession,
or at least London City Hi-Fi's for this period, the podcast will be a lot more regular.
Also, I wanted to give a quick shout out to all of the people at Liquidity that are listeners to the podcast. We really value your listenership. And thanks for getting in touch, and thanks for coming along this ride with us. Big shout out to Rod, who I met in the he's Welsh. I met in the airport at Schiphol. Me and Holly sat down for some Maccas, and then this guy kind of turned around and he was like, "Don't mean to interrupt, but I really enjoyed your set." I was like, "Oh, cool." And then he was like, "Oh, I'm a big fan of the podcast as well." So we had a little chat, and he was a great dude.
Isn't that so fucking cool that you could be in a foreign airport? I mean, arguably, yes, in a country that you've just played a big festival at, but for you to be recognized and for them to be like, "I'm a really big fan of the podcast," that is fucking cool.
It's pretty wild.
And remember, you got recognized in London, in King's Cross, in a fucking Waitrose.
No, I was just walking along the street. Oh, no, yeah, in the
Waitrose, when you were buying beer, someone was like, "Are you from Ekko and Sidetrack?" And you're like, "Yeah."
And then as we were walking the streets not far from Covent Garden,
Yeah,
trying to
you've
buy
been
some ice cream.
recognised heaps. This is crazy.
It is crazy, but it's not about the recognition.
No.
What I was saying is like it was lovely to meet and talk to, fans of the podcast, and this is what we do. This is why we do it, and we love it, and we love you, and thank you so much for your
Being a part of it.
being a part of it. And if you ever want to come up and chat to us, come up and chat. Let's have a conversation.
Perfect.
And you're all bloody lovely.
You are all bloody lovely. Everyone we've met on this journey, on this trip, on this tour has been fucking fantastic, and we love it.
Yeah.
It's honestly like one of the best parts about what we do. We get to meet and talk and laugh and hug and sometimes cry with fans and people that enjoy our music and enjoy us and enjoy the podcast, and
people that enjoy the music,
beautiful.
enjoy the music as well. Like it really means so much
music.
to hear from people that like, oh, this particular song was a poignant moment for me at a time, or even just like I really love that. We've had a few people. Is a wasp about to get you?
I don't know. That might have been a bee.
We've had a few people tell us that, and I think that again warms the soul to hear that from someone. You go, oh wow, that tune that we created that nearly wasn't, or that was like a bit of a tough one to get through, or that came together really easily. Whatever, the fact that it's touched someone on the other side of the world is an awesome thing.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful.
It is. So are you.
Thanks, buddy. I love you.
I love you too, man. It's good to be back.
It's great to be back. See you all next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. We are Ekko and Sidetrack on all social media. We've recently updated our YouTube. Go and give that a subscribe so you can keep up to date with all the latest video podcasts. And follow us on Spotify too so you can keep up to date with all our latest music releases. Big up.